Hi, I'm Elizabeth Swansson, a 7th grader at the Parker School and a member of the Parker Student Council. Welcome to the premiere episode of Ask the Superintendent, where Chelmsford residents can ask their questions to School Superintendent Dr. J. Lane. This first question is from Dorothy Bouvet, a resident whose children have graduated from Chelmsford Schools. Dorothy hears that Chelmsford is one of the few towns in Massachusetts that does not yet have full-day kindergarten, and she wants to know how full day would make children better learners or help them succeed in the long run.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for presenting Dorothy's question. Full-day kindergarten has been on the minds of, I think, many in the Chelmsford Public Schools and even residents in the town of Chelmsford for quite some time. Chelmsford, I believe, is one of only 5 or 6 communities now within the state that do not offer a full-day kindergarten program. And again, as I came on last fall, in the fall of 2016, that is certainly one of the initiatives that I heard a lot about from school committee members and staff within the schools and parents who were eager to have a full-day kindergarten experience for their students. That is one of the initiatives that we're working on during this current school year to make a reality in Chelmsford for the spring of 2017. The fall of 2017. And as I mentioned previously, there's work underway already on modular classrooms to be able to help house the program. And we're also trying to generate in our fiscal 18 budgets the funding mechanism to be able to pay for the additional staff that'll be necessary. Full day K will mean a lot, I think, to the community and even the students themselves. Basically, we're going to be able to double the amount of instructional time that students receive in the classrooms. So right now, our half-day kindergarten students are only in schools for 2.5 hours. And within that 2.5 hours, they have some social skills time, they have some academic instruction time, they may see a specialist. So there's a lot being crammed into a 2.5-hour session. And having a full-day session is going to allow, obviously, double the amount of time being spent on academics so that students will be able to get a deeper dive into some of the mathematic concepts that they're going to need to help them in years to come. Literacy skills will be able to be expanded upon in the full day offering, which I think is significant. Additionally, some structured playtime for kids, and you don't see that as much today as even if you saw it 10 or 20 years ago. But kids will be able to actually, kind of learn to be better citizens and better friends within classrooms and have some more time that's just dedicated to social play.
Will their curriculum change in going from half day to full day?
The biggest benefit is going to be the curriculum frameworks that we all operate under are consistent, but we're going to be able to get much deeper into the areas. And oftentimes in a half-day program, you're covering a lot of topics on a surface level, but we'll be able to do that deeper dive into the different curriculum topics, and I think it's really going to pay off. Research actually does show that a full-day program is beneficial, particularly in the K1, 2, 3 up through elementary school years. And then if we can get that extra time on learning early on, it can often help us set students up for greater success in the years to come or the years to follow.
Does full-day kindergarten really make a difference for students?
I think another big reason for moving to full-day K, it's also going to be another opportunity for us to, at an earlier time, identify students who might be struggling with certain areas. And the earlier that we can actually put intervention services into place and some remedial services into place, will have a long-lasting effect for those particular students. And obviously, as those students move up through the ranks grade-wise within Chelmsford, they're going to have an easier time, our staff are going to have an easier time, and their experience is going to be better.
Dorothy also wants to know about the early start time at Chelmsford High. She says that current research suggests that older students, particularly teens, perform better in school if they're able to sleep longer in the mornings. Is there any interest in starting school later in the day for the high school students?
Thank you, Elizabeth, for bringing Dorothy's other question forward regarding start times for high school students. There is a considerable amount of research that indicates a later start time, particularly for high school students, has a positive impact on their academic standing and academic achievement. It is something that's being looked at across the state. There have been several reports out that actually do indicate that a later start time for high school students is advantageous to them. I think one of the struggles that school districts find is it's not just an easy switch in schedule. Our high school students go in at about 7:20 every morning is the official start time. Obviously, buses and cars have to start up earlier to get the students to the high school in time for that. and to just move the high school schedule, not only in Chelmsford, but in other communities in our area, to 8:20 or 9:20, has other ramifications on other operational issues within the district. So currently we operate a busing program at the elementary, middle, and high school level. And we have the same bus actually run 3 different bus runs each day. So they're starting with the high school, a middle, and an elementary school. And if we want to keep the operational efficiency within the budget and have a bus actually make 3 bus runs, you need to have staggered times for your schedules. So one thing that schools do look at is possibly flipping the high school and the elementary school schedule, so that the elementary school kids would actually start first and the high school kids would start last. You still have the advantage of being able to utilize that same bus for the 3 runs. It's just out of order. That is something that certainly can happen, and it just takes some time to look at. So I know the few communities that I've actually talked to that are looking at implementing a later start time for high school students are looking to do just that, because they actually do utilize buses for multiple runs. For a town of Chelmsford, or a school system our size, to actually make that kind of a change, it is a multi-year project. So it would take 1 to 2 years of planning, getting everyone on board for the change, figuring out even when it comes to after-school activities, different clubs and sports that students play in. What you would want to do is actually, ideally, work within, in Chelmsford's situation, the whole Merrimack Valley, and see if there could be some kind of agreement that could come from all of the Merrimack Valley high schools to move towards a later start time, and actually have all the schools have similar exit times, so that when kids are participating on sports, or if they're doing different clubs and activities, and a lot of that does overlap with other schools in the area, they're all on a similar time frame. But it would take minimally a year to 2 for that to happen. That is not in the works right now in Chelmsford. So for the coming school year, the 2017-18 school year, there is no discussion about a change in start time. I do think you're going to hear more and more about that in the years to come, and it certainly is a possibility in towns like Chelmsford and elsewhere. But there is a lot of thought and a lot of processing that has to happen behind the scenes to make that a reality. As more data becomes available, and other schools in other areas do move to that later start time, that is something that we actually keep track of and we monitor. And ultimately, we'd probably bring that forward to the school committee for a vote and consideration to get their guidance on implementing a later start time if that were to be considered.
Lastly, Dorothy wants to know, considering the recent financial issues in the Chelmsford schools, could you give us a financial state of the school system report?
Thanks again, Elizabeth, for bringing forward this question from Dorothy. One of the reasons I think I was actually brought into the school system last year was because of some of the financial difficulty that the district was going through. I think overall the district is in a pretty solid footing this current year. Last year when I came on board, it was difficult for me transition-wise, as well as the business office had just undergone a turnover in staff as well. So Michelle Crester had come on board July of 15, as Director of Business and Finance. I joined the district in August, and both of us inherited a budget that had been created by a prior administration. So it takes some time to get up to speed with exactly how individuals budget and where the money is within the budget. So that first year, we were really trying to kind of shore things up, make sure that we were all on the same page with regard to where the budget was at. And Michelle and I, when we started working on the current year budget, I think had a much better sense of how we wanted it formatted, how we wanted it laid out, where we were going to account for different things within the budget. So that that was certainly, I think, the current year budget that we're in, the fiscal 17 budget, we feel is a solid budget. I think we're on fairly solid footings. Some of the issues that had happened previously in the district, it's not just an overnight fix. So it is going to take the district, a number of years to kind of, I think we're steady at this point, but, we don't have reserves built up to the level that, I would be comfortable with, or we want to work in the years to come. One of the first issues that actually came up last summer when we came on board was we found that we were short some funding for out-of-district tuition for special ed students. So we actually had to go to town meeting in the fall of 2015 and request additional funding. Town meeting graciously stepped forward, gave us an extra $500,000 to be able to fill that hole for last year. But that basically created a structural deficit in 15 that we had to address in 16. So we did address that in fiscal 16, so the current year budget accounted for that. But it's going to take a number of years until all of those, I think, kind of prior effects of budgeting are caught up. We had a significant number of audits done within the district prior to my arrival, and each audit comes with its own set of recommendations and kind of best practices for moving forward, and it takes time to be able to actually put systems in place within an organization our size, and then actually have a culture change and have a culture shift so that everyone actually understands why we're doing things the way we're doing them, how we're going to do them going forward, and that you can actually have some consistency in reporting to be able to use that data as we look to make budgets and the whole budget process better in years to come. I think the district and the town have been very proactive in trying to kind of stabilize finances, particularly within the school department. Over last year, we spent a considerable amount of time on a Munis conversion. The school department and the town used to be on separate versions or accounting software packages. They're both called Munis, but they were separate from each other. So John Souza, the town's finance director, and Darlene Lucier, and Michelle and the business office staff in the Chelmsford Public Schools worked really hard to unify our accounting system so that we're all now, for fiscal 17, we're on the same Munis accounting system. And I think that's an effort to be transparent within the community and working with town government so that both of us at any given time can be looking at accounts and budgeting. That's going to make our reporting to the state much more streamlined and efficient. So there have been several steps that have actually gone into trying to shore up finances within the school department. I think an area of vulnerability in the years to come is still some of the shifting that happens within the course of a school year, particularly with special education students that may come into the school system after the school year has begun, and they come in from other communities. So we have no way to budget for those students who might come in, who might either already have out-of-district placements that we then have to assume the cost for, or who need specialized programming that we don't offer in town, and we then have to go and procure for them. That's a cost that's kind of a budget buster in any community, not only Chelmsford, but it's very difficult to budget for that. And I think the struggle that we have right now is, in a perfect world, you would actually set aside X number of dollars to handle those type of situations. But the budget is so tight right now, we're not able to actually set aside as much as we would like to have that cushion be there. I can tell you that, since coming on board, my work with Michelle, and now obviously my work with Joanna, we're taking steps to be very transparent. We do regular reporting to the school committee. We meet regularly with the town officials, the FinCom within town. Anytime any resident or member of the community has a question about school finances or budgeting, they're welcome to email us or attend a meeting. So it's we want to be out there and be proactive providing information. And I hope that we actually received a considerable amount of positive feedback last year for the budget document that we produced, being just very readable and trying to produce financial reports that are readable to the community. And you don't need to be a CPA to actually go through and find out exactly what's happening with all the transactions. So we'll continue to make budget enhancements and to have the document be kind of a living document in the years to come so that community members can follow along and actually have the document kind of tell the story of the Chelmsford Public Schools, both financially and programmatically. We're committed to making those steps going forward so that the community can really start to rebuild that sense of confidence in the school department for our financial management practices.
Hi, my name is Ruby Collins, and I'm a 7th grader at McCarthy Middle School, plus a student council member. Nina Balin grew up in Chelmsford and attended McCarthy Middle School and Chelmsford High School. Nina is now the parent of 2 middle school students. Nina is disappointed that home economics and industrial arts are no longer part of the CPS curriculum. She feels they are important to round out student skills in these areas, as well as to offer students an option other than music or art. Can these classes be reintroduced?
Thank you, Ruby, for bringing forward that question from Nina. We appreciate that, and I think this is an area where, as a district, we oftentimes have difficulty juggling just the number of options to offer our particular students. Home economics over the years has actually changed in title. Oftentimes it's now called Family Life Consumer Science, and we do have programming at the elementary and the middle school, at the middle school and the high school level that fall into that category. But in offering or trying to offer opportunities for our students both within the realm of physical education and arts and drama, music and orchestra, All of these different programs compete for time within the schedule. So instead of having a very prescribed program at the middle school level and the high school level, we try to offer classes and courses more of an elective type format. So we give students more options than limiting their options. And I think unfortunately some of the traditional classes that maybe happened in middle school or home ec, even when I was there, some of your cookings and sewings and things along those lines have morphed into some different programming at the middle school and the high school level. It's something that can be looked at an individual school level when we're actually, again, kind of working on budgeting and staffing. It certainly can happen, and it can be looked at and evaluated on an annual basis. I will tell you, when students get to the high school level, they obviously have more choices than they do at the middle school level for courses. And as they get up into their junior and senior years, the ability to take electives often expands, and students can take classes which fall under that new category of family life consumer science. At the high school, we do have early childhood education classes. We have industrial tech design classes. There's a class on furniture building. There are different classes within the business realm if someone wants to take some accounting or marketing, financial management type courses, and they all fall under that broader umbrella, again, of not home ec, but family life consumer science. So that certainly is a discussion that can happen if there are additional options that either staff or students or parents would like to see. What I would encourage is an actual conversation at the school level. If people would really like to see a change in the curriculum, either working through school site councils or PTO groups or talking to the school principal about other ideas that staff and students and parents would like to see. And they certainly can be reviewed on an annual basis as part of budget discussions. And we would then just need to figure out how it would fall within the overarching schedule. And oftentimes what has to happen is, to put a new program into place, something has to come out, because the schedules are what they are. We can't just keep adding courses without actually taking things away. So perhaps this is a time to take a look at existing programming to see if there would be an interest or the level of interest to support a new initiative or a new class in a school. I'm certainly up for that discussion, as I'm sure the principals would be in their buildings.
Up next is Beth Moore, a parent with 3 children in elementary and middle school. Beth notes that from 7th grade on, CPS students do not get a full year of physical education, plus they do not have recess. Beth wants to know if there's a way to increase student activity during the day and to have physical education consistently throughout the year.
This question really is very similar to a previous question from another interested person about adding courses at our elementary or middle school level. And not being able to offer a full year course in, say, 7th or 8th grade for physical education oftentimes, again, is tied to that other allied arts schedule, or the specialist schedule, as it's often referred to in the buildings. So we want students to be able to take physical education, and we also want them to be able to take art courses and music courses and drama courses, and it's just a competing interest on the schedule. I do know I'm actually very happy with the work that's been happening at both Parker and McCarthy for some of their outdoor adventure type activities and trying to tie in some additional physical activity into the school day. Taking a look at how recess time can actually be spent doing more physical fitness type activity as opposed to just pure recess. But this really also does come down to just it's a scheduling issue, and being able to try to offer and provide our students in Chelmsford with as many opportunities as we possibly can within the schedule. Some things have to either go, or by offering that choice to students, obviously they have a choice of taking one over another, but we can't guarantee that they actually have time in their schedule to take every class that different individuals may want. When it comes to prioritization, again, this is an issue that I would probably have discussion-wise have it start at the school level. So if there's a real interest in actually having, say, phys ed be a requirement for full year for 7th and 8th grade in our middle schools, I would bring that to the attention of the building principal, have a discussion with the phys ed and health staff in the buildings to see exactly how that would work for them, or what recommendations they may want to have. And principals, oftentimes from time to time, again, when we're doing budgeting, will bring proposals for the central administration team to review. And this certainly could be a proposal that's reviewed if the school staff and the parents and the students really feel that this should be a priority. I think the schools try to take the tact of having as many opportunities for students as possible, because you have different kids that are going to gravitate to different areas. And I think it's really a matter of kind of competing interests with regard to offering program that students ultimately want.
Now we have a question from Jen Hughes, a parent with 3 children in elementary and middle school, as well as a recent graduate. Jen would like to know if there will be any redistricting for the 2017-18 school year.
Thanks again for bringing forward Jen's question this time. And there will actually be no redistricting during the 2017-2018 school year. One of the things, when a district actually undertakes a redistricting program, again, similar to if we ever were to entertain a start change at the high school level, redistricting takes 1 to 2 years to be able to really put a thoughtful and well-planned program together if we were to do that. My goal would be to actually have the comprehensive facility assessment, which is coming to conclusion, actually conclude, to be able to then take phase 2 and to identify which of the 5 master plan options that we as a community would like to implement in the years to come. And when we actually have a solution to that, and when we apply to the Mass School Building Authority with our statement of interest on our new school project, that once the community actually endorses and comes on board with a plan, if at that point in time it calls for redistricting because of, say, new schools or refurbished schools where they're going to come into play, that would be the time to look at redistricting. At the present time, based on enrollment and capacity, our high school and our middle schools are actually in fine shape. They have plenty of capacity. Where we're feeling the pinch a little bit is at the elementary school level, and those classrooms and class sizes are projecting to go up in the years to come. So within each of the 4 buildings, though, there wouldn't be a tremendous amount of need to redistrict those 4 at this point in time. We'd really need to see which additional school would be coming online, or if there would be a new school, before we'd entertain that. So redistricting in town is a number of years away. It is not being considered for the 2017-18 school year.
Jen also noted that Center Elementary has a very large kindergarten class this year. For next year, will another first grade class be added to avoid overcrowding? Jen notes there is precedent for this from 2010.
Thank you again, Jen, for this follow-up question. I won't get into specifics with regard to a particular grade level at a particular school, but I can tell you a little bit about the process that we follow to identify how many sections of students that we need at any particular grade level in the system. This is an issue that we actually look at each year as we start the budget process. We look at our current school enrollments, and we also look primarily at the kindergarten and first grade level for the number of students that are in each of our individual elementary schools. The goals that we have in mind, ideally we would like to see our kindergarten numbers in the district be between 20 and 24. Our other elementary school grades 1 to 12, between 22 and 26. They generally fall somewhere in that range. What we will do is, on an annual basis, as we're working on the budget, actually look at our existing head counts and then also any projected head counts that we know based on history. We know right now, because we only have half-day K, there's always a jump up in the number of first graders at each of our schools. But we look at historical trends to see what the delta is between the number of enrolled K students now and what the number of actual first grade enrolled students is the following year when we're making our decisions. And if we see a class based on those numbers is already going to be over that 26 time frame or student head count, we'll often add an extra section as long as space is available within the schools going forward. So that will typically get laid out during the budget process in January and February. One of the issues and one of the constraints that we do have is physical space within the buildings. There are schools at this point in time, even if a class approaches 25 or 26, we physically don't have an extra classroom in those buildings to go and add an extra section. The modular classrooms that are going to be added to the elementary school levels for the fall of 2017 will certainly help that, and that will actually provide us with a little extra flexibility in our programming and will allow us to add an extra class potentially if we need to. But that is all done as part of the budget process, which will take place after the first of the year.
We here at Ask the Superintendent have a question too. Dr. Lane, you're just completing your first year in the district. How do you feel it went, and what's in store for the coming year?
Thank you very much for that question. Last year was an exciting year for me in the Chelmsford Public Schools. I joined the district in August, right before the school year started, and there were several initiatives that we tried to work on over the course of my first year. One of the notable projects that we worked on was a comprehensive facility assessment. As I came on board into the district, one of the issues that the school committee had flagged for me to work with them on, and I'd also heard a lot in the community about, was the interest in moving towards a full-day kindergarten program. To be able to do that, we needed to be able to provide space within the district to house a full-day program for kindergarten. So one of the first things that I looked at was the existing space within the district and quickly identified an issue within our existing elementary schools of not having enough capacity to be able to offer that program. So working with the school committee in the town, we engaged the services of a firm, Doran Whittier, to come in and actually help us put together a comprehensive facility assessment of the district schools, taking a look at the existing condition of the schools, and also keeping in mind where we want our facilities to be in the years to come. Over the course of the fall and the spring, we held several community visioning sessions where we sought input from the public about where the community would like to see the schools be in the years to come. I think that activity worked very well. I was happy with the work of Doran Whittier, and the work still continues to this point. One of the action elements that came out at the end of that study was a plan to be able to offer full-day kindergarten within our schools for this coming year. So that is something that I'm going to be working on in year 2 of our work. I think another significant issue that we worked with the school committee was cleanliness of our school buildings. The district had a 5-year contract with Aramark that was coming to a close at the end of last year. I believe there was a lot of dissatisfaction overall with the level of cleanliness in the different schools, and we actually worked to come up with a new model of cleaning our buildings, where for this current school year, we actually switched to a model where the district employs a full-time lead custodian in each of our buildings, and we contract out the nighttime cleaning services to 3 different vendors. So instead of hiring one vendor to come in and provide our cleaning in the evenings, we have 3 different vendors that had submitted bids and almost have a little internal competition among the vendors to really keep all of our schools, elementary, middle, and high school, as clean as we possibly can. That was another significant project that we worked on with the staff last year. And I think the third major element that we worked on last year was kind of redefining some roles within central office and filling some vacancies within the district, which will help us not only last year but in the years to come. One significant vacancy we had was within our special education office, and our director of special education services needed to be hired. We were very lucky last year that Carol Fredette, who had led that department for a number of years in Chelmsford, was willing to come back on an interim basis and help us keep that program going last year. Carol also helped us perform a search to hire a new director of student support services, and Amy Reese actually joined us from the Andover Public Schools this past July 1st. I'm very excited for Amy coming on board and helping us with that transition. We also revamped our personnel office, so we created a personnel and professional learning office so that our new director of personnel and professional learning, Dr. Cheryl Kirkpatrick, not only handles all of the human relations or human resource transactions within the district, but she's also going to be a resource to work with teachers and staff in the district around teacher evaluation and improving teaching practices in the schools. Cheryl's going to be a great resource in that particular area. As part of our facilities oversight, we hired Brian Curley to be the Director of Operations and Maintenance for the school system. So Brian is the point of contact now for the day-to-day custodians that actually work for us in the schools, as well as he oversees the contracts for the 3 nighttime cleaning companies that come in the evenings. And I think the last position that we hired that is really going to see some benefit in the years to come is Bill Silver was hired to be our new Director of Technology Services. So Bill brings a tremendous background in both networking and classroom instructional technology, which I think is a unique skill set to have one individual have. But Bill joined our team in July 1st. So now we actually have a central office team that is formed to not only improve things now, but in the years to come. So last year was a very busy year for me in the district. It was an exciting year, being my first year in the district, and I think those 3 initiatives took up a lot of time, but I think the district is going to see a good yield from those initiatives in the years to come. So I'm very excited about how last year worked out, and I'm also excited about the work to come in the following years.
Thanks for watching Ask the Superintendent. If you'd like to submit a question to Dr. Lang, please visit the Chelmsford Public Schools website. We hope you enjoyed the show.